Hey everybody, Mr. Pizzullo here, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm in my backyard, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a little adventure in outdoor listening. And what we're going to do is we're just going to sit quietly for a minute or two. When you do this at home, if you want to try this, you could do it in a safe place, right? You don't. You want to make sure that you're still keeping to all of the social distancing standards that have been put forward. So you want to stay away from other people. You don't go to like a public park or anything like that. If you don't have a backyard, you might maybe just ask mom or dad if you could open a window up for a little bit, and you're just going to sit quietly for a few minutes, and you're going to listen to the sounds that you hear. Some of them might be nature sounds. Some of them might be sounds that you just hear around the neighborhood. It could be construction. It might be a car driving by, anything. And I'm just going to make a little note. I'm going to write down just what I hear, and I'm going to describe that sound just a little bit. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and take those sounds and I'm going to try and turn that into a piece of music that I write, okay? So I'm just going to sit here quietly for a few minutes, and as I hear the sounds, I'll tell you what it is I'm hearing just in case you don't hear them, and I'm going to write them down, and then I'm going to show you how we turn this into a song. All right, so here goes. Okay, the first thing I hear is our neighbor has a fountain, I guess, in their backyard, and it's just a steady kind of trickle. So I'm going to write down fountain, and it has kind of a high pitch, so I'm going to put high pitch, and it's not got like a steady beat, but it's got a steady texture, a steady sound to it. So I'm going to write down fountain, and I'm going to write steady, and I'm going to just write high pitch, and that's going to be all I need to do. And I'll show you what we'll do with that later. I heard a car drive by. So a car, it was a drive-by, and it had a kind of a crescendo to it. It started soft, and then it got louder, and then as it sped by, it got softer again. So it was kind of like a kind of sound to it. So I'm going to use my music signs. If you've learned these, you should know the music signs for a crescendo and a decrescendo, right? So you're going to put those into our piece too. I don't know if you heard that or not, but I just heard a little bird. And of course, that was also a high pitch. And it was just a little tweet, 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 tweet. So they were short sounds. Bird, high pitch, short sounds. There's the bird again. The nice thing about this project, you can spend as much time or as little time as you want in your quiet place just listening to sounds. You might have 4 or 5 things on your list. You might have 1 or 2 things on your list. You may have as many as 12 things on your list. But I'm going to stay out here for just another minute. I think I hear our neighbor in the back on this side. It sounds like they're practicing some sort of baseball or softball or t-ball, because I hear a thunk, thunk of the bat hitting the ball. So I'm going to put thunk, kind of a medium to low pitch. Oh, there it is again, do you hear it? Very short sound. There it is again. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to wrap it up there and just go with, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 4 sounds. So we've got the fountain, we've got the car drive-by, and then we've got a bird, and we've got the thunk of the baseball practice. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to show you how we could take those sounds, and we're going to try and turn them into a piece of music. All right? Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to create a drum track that's going to be the fountain that I heard. So it sounded kind of like I said, it had a high pitch sound. So I'm going to use the hi-hat cymbals. Well, I'm going to use the open hi-hat and the rock hi-hat together. And what I've done is I've put long, short, short, long, 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 short, short, long, long. And I've made this pattern to sort of sound like the water flowing and trickling through the fountain, because it sounded kind of like a chirp, chick, 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 chick. You know what a fountain sounds like. So it's not going to be exactly what a fountain is, but this is going to be my musical interpretation or my musical idea for what a fountain sounds sounds like when I turn that sound that I heard in nature into some kind of notes. So here we go. Okay, so that's my water fountain. Now, yours doesn't have to be that way. If you heard a water fountain and you want to make it sound a little bit different, that's fine. Remember, this is your composition. You're going to do whatever you want to do with it. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to try, and I'm going to also use this program. I'm going to use my cue backbeat to also come up with like that baseball sound, that little knock of the ball hitting the bat. And if I use a snare, that doesn't quite work. All right, I need a different sound. So I'm going to go up here to my Kit Lab. You see where I clicked up there? Right where it says Kit Lab. That was where I did it. Right up there. Kit Lab. And then it's going to give me all these different sounds. Okay. Over here, I'm going to not just stick to rock or hip. No, I'm not any style. I'm going to go down to show all. And it will show me all the different sounds that I have. And I want to hear something that sounds like a click or a knock. And so where it says rock side stick, when I click that, that has a little more of a rock sound to it, or a little more of a clicky sound to it, like a ball hitting a bat, or a bat hitting a ball. But there's other options. Let's see what else I can find. There's a snap here, hip hop snap. That's not too bad. The clap, that sounds too much like a clap. I'm not going to use that. Down here in my Latin sounds, I see something that's a wood block, and I like that one because that to me sounds a lot like a ball hitting a bat. So I'm going to take that sound and I'm going to drag that over to my snare drum. And I'm going to change my snare drum sound from jazz snare 1. I'm going to change that to my wood block. So I just drag it over here. And sometimes this takes a little bit of time until you get it where you want it. But it'll eventually drop in, and that's going to be the snare drum. Okay? So what you might want to do if you don't already have, I have a kit here that's called Mr. P's Kit. You probably don't have a custom kit, so you're going to want to click on New and enter a kit name. And I'm going to call this my Outside Song Kit because I'm making a song on the sounds that I heard outside. And on the Outside Song Kit, that's where I'm going to drag my woodblock sound, and I'm going to replace that with the snare. If it doesn't work there, you might need to try a different spot. You might need to put it in one of the tom racks or something like that. So once you get that woodblock song where you want it, there it is. I'm going to exit this, and I'm going to use that sound for this kit. So I'm going to use my Outside Song Kit. I click on exit, and you see up here it says Outside Song Kit, and where the tom-tom used to be, now I've got my wood block. So I'm just going to put one little wood block right there, and now we'll push play. And there it is. I push repeat, and this is going to be the steady beat that I use for my song. Now, eventually I'm going to make this an MP3. I'm going to put this into Cue Composer. And I'm going to use Cue Composer to make my car drive-by and also my bird sounds. But before I could do that, I'm going to have to make this a lot longer. Because remember, if I've got a 2-bar song in Cue Backbeat, it's only going to be 2 bars in Cue Composer. And I want this to be maybe like an 8 or even a 16-bar composition. So I'm just going to copy these patterns over and over again until I get a steady beat. Okay. Okay, so what I did is I copied this out, and I kept the fountain pretty steady the whole time, so the hi-hat pattern doesn't change. But what I did get to do is over the 8 bars is I move this little knock around so that it's kind of random, and that'll give the piece kind of like a little bit of interest. So this is the full piece, and then what I did is in the very, very last note, I added a little crash just to give it some punch. So here we have now is an 8-bar phrase that we're going to use for our rhythm in our Cue Composer track. Whoops, let's play it. There we go. Go back to the beginning, and here it is. All right, so it doesn't have to be long. I'm just going to stick with 8 bars right now. And what I'm going to do next is I have to create an MP3 track so I can bring this into Cue Composer using my play along. So I'll go down here to File. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is save this. it's going to need a title. So I'm going to stick with outside song, since that's what I'm using for all the other stuff. That was my MP3 track. That's going to be my rhythm beat, and that's also going to be my composition. This way I won't get confused when I'm trying to find those files in Quaver. All right, so outside song, got it saved. I'm going to go back to file, and I'm going to go over here where it says make MP3. Now, you should be signed in with your Quaver code, so the item won't cost anything. If you aren't using your Quaver code, you need to go back and log in. Otherwise, it's going to ask you for 100 Quaver notes to do this. So you don't want to have to use your Quaver notes to publish your song. So just make sure you're logged in on your class code. If you forgot what they are, check out one of the earlier YouTube videos. I've got all the class codes. If you can't find it or you're confused, just send me an email and I'll tell you what your class code is. Then I'm going to push publish. And it's going to ask for a title for my MP3. And I'm going to use that same title, outside song. So now my drum track and my MP3 have the exact same name. That's why I won't get confused. And then it'll say my song has been added to the publish list. They'll let me know when it's ready to go. It usually only takes a minute or two. So when I exit here, if you go back to Quaver Street, you might already see a notification that says, let's see if it's down here yet. Sometimes notifications pop up and it'll say your song is ready to go. But I'll be willing to bet by the time you get into Q Composer, your song's already ready and you'll be able to use it. So I'm gonna go Kids Enter here. And just to do something a little bit different, instead of going the normal way, instead of using your classroom, I'm gonna go down to the studio. And I'm not using my class, my student dashboard. Instead, I'm going to go over here to the piano where it says Q Composer, and I'm going to launch Q Composer. Now, the first thing I want to do is load my rhythm track, because that's important, because you want to be able to use the rhythm that you just made in Q Backbeat for this song that you're going to compose in Q Composer. So where it says click here to add a play along track, that's where I'm going to go first, but I accidentally bumped the keyboard. I put this note there. And you remember how to delete notes, right? You just click on the note, move the cursor until the cursor becomes a pointer finger, and then you could take that and just poof, it's gone. So click here to load a play along, and I should see somewhere down here my outside song. There it is. So I'm going to click on outside song, click on open, and now even though I haven't put any notes in yet, when I push play, I'm going to hear that rhythm track that I made in Q Backbeat. And that's my rhythm track. Now, all I need to do is add my bird sounds. So for the bird sounds, I remember I wrote down here, bird songs, they are short and high pitched. So what I'm gonna do is first of all, I'm gonna change my patch from piano, I'm gonna use a marimba, because this is gonna be a shorter sound. So now whenever I click on the keyboard, I'm gonna hear a marimba sound. Now that's a low pitch, you see it's on the bass clef, so that's not gonna work. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use a very, very high pitch. So up here, I'm going to click this note. And then this note. That's going to be the first note. So I used a high A and a high F sharp. Now when I push play, I'll hear those notes. That was my bird tweet. Now I'm going to do one where I play the notes together, and then I'm going to do one here where I play the notes apart. So there's my A, and then over here is going to be my F. And I want that to be a sharp. So I just go to accidentals, I click on that, I'm going to make this note a sharp. There it is. So now let's hear it. So I'm going to make that, I heard that bird a couple of times, so I'm going to put one there, I'm going to put one there, and then I don't want to overdo it, so I'm just going to add one more towards the end. Let's see, maybe in the 7th bar, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make these notes really short. I'm going to use an 8th note, I'm going to put the A there, and then I'm going to put, oops, I got to switch my accidental off, I just made that an A sharp by accident, so I'm going to make that an A natural. There we go. And then over here, I'm going to do my F sharp. accidental, F sharp, right, da. Oops, drag it down to there. There we go. Now let's play it. I've got my water fountain, I've got my baseball bat, and now I've got my bird. Now, as I'm listening to that, I noticed that the F sharp that I wanted to put in that last little bit right over here, that note didn't come through. But you know what? That's okay. I kind of like it that way. So I'm just going to leave that note in F natural because I think it sounds cool. And right about here is where I'm going to put my car. So I'm going to choose my dynamics. Now remember, the car started soft and it got loud, and then it drove by. And as after it got loud, it got soft again. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pick piano for my dynamic, and I'm gonna put it right here. There's a lot of space in this area, and so that's where I'm gonna put my car sound. So what I'll do is I'm gonna choose a quarter note. I'm gonna make this a low. Since I had a high A for my bird, I'm gonna use a low A. And I'm just gonna put a bunch of quarter notes down here. Whoops, I got my sharps on again. Let's go to naturals. A natural. Because if you put a sharp and a natural at the same time, it's not going to sound so good. Whoops, get back over there. Alrighty. So, I'm going to start it soft. Whoops. You'll want to put the dynamic where that yellow line is, and then it's going to get a little bit louder, and then it's going to get a little bit louder, and then it's going to fade away. So I've got piano, mezzo forte, forte, mezzo forte, and I think I'm going to add one more A right there, just so I've got a note that I could use. At dynamic piano, nice and quiet. All right, let's hear what we got. And there it is. That's my outside song. So the last thing I want to do is save this. I'm going to call this, instead of my new song, I'm going to call this outside song. I've worked a lot on it. It may not be perfect. It might not be exactly the way I want it, but that's where I'm going to stop for today. Whoops, unavailable. How about my outside song? I don't know why it does that sometimes, but it does. There we go. So my outside song, I'm gonna go to File. I'm gonna click on Save. I kind of like it the way it is, but I'm gonna check it out later and see if I still like it. I might want to add some stuff to it. Maybe I'm going to add a recorder track to it. Maybe I want to add an ukulele track to it. Maybe I want to try some found instruments. But there's a lot of things I could do with this now that I've got a basis for a song. And I use this just by listening to the sounds that I heard outside and then trying to make musical sense out of it. So something for you to try on your own. Check it out. If you get this going and you run into some problems, you have some questions, just shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help you out. And I'm really anxious to see what you guys come up with. All right, have fun with that.